As the 700s arrived, there was no Spain, no Portugal. There was in that place the Visigoth kingdom, established by the Goths who had marauded their way across Europe. Then, in 711, Tariq ibn Ziyad crossed the Straits of Gibraltar with a band of 5,000 men to check it out. What he found was a Visigoth kingdom in utter disarray, and within a year, nearly the entire peninsula was under Islamic rule. To understand what happened next, we have to consider a political change 3,000 miles away. In 750, the Islamic Empire was the largest ever known, and ruled by the Arab Umayyad dynasty of Damascus. But the Abbasids, with their roots in Persia, defeated the Umayyads that year and assumed control. They then invited the defeated Umayyads to a reconciliation dinner. When they were all together, the doors were locked and the Abbasids slaughtered the entire Umayyad family. All that is, except two. Abdurrahman and his brother were late, and when they heard the sounds of the massacre, they fled. What happens next is the stuff of a thriller film. By the time the two reached the Euphrates River, the Abbasids had run them down. Only Abdurrahman and his servant Bedr avoided the assassins. The Abbasids dogged Abdurrahman through Palestine, Egypt, and across North Africa. Finally, he was at the end of the empire, in Morocco, and the Abbasids pressed close. Abdurrahman fled across the straits to the Iberian Peninsula. There, some who were loyal to the Umayyads joined him, and in 755 he defeated the ruler at Cordova. The Abbasids didn't follow, and Abdurrahman had won his own kingdom, which he called Al-Andalus. Abdurrahman spent his 30-some years in power fighting battles to cement his position. His time was not the great cultural advance his dynasty would one day create, but he did have the great mosque built immediately across the street from his residence. Today it continues to serve as the Cathedral of Cordova, and 1.5 million people visit the cathedral mosque each year to stand inside its forest of double arches. Al-Andalus reached its zenith in the 900s under Abdurrahman III and his son Al-Hakam II. Cordova had become the largest city in Europe and by far the ornament of the world. Al-Hakam II had a library of 400,000 books, and all across Europe the new royal palace Medinat al-Zahra was famous for its magnificence. But all that was to be stunningly short-lived. When Al-Hakam died, his son was only 12, and Al-Mansur schemed his way into the position of chancellor. He was remarkably good as a military leader. Al-Andalus was never more powerful and stable. But he hated Al-Hakam's intellectual side, and after Al-Hakam had died, he burned most of his library. Worse, by the time Al-Mansur died in 1006, the dynasty itself was in disarray. 10 more people ascended to the throne over 27 years, until in 1036 the Caliphate of Cordova came to an end. Al-Andalus disintegrated into dozens of smaller Muslim kingdoms. With numerous Christian kingdoms in the north, the peninsula saw a period of Muslim-Christian, Muslim-Muslim, and Christian-Christian war, oftentimes with alliances across religious divides. Moreover, the dynamic inside the kingdoms was often most severe for Jews. For 300 years they had lived the Golden Age as part of Al-Andalus. In 1013, that exploded in a massacre of Jews in Cordova, and in 1066 another massacre took place in Granada. Ironically, many Jews fled to the Christian kingdoms. Toledo, which had been taken by the King of Castile in 1085, was one of those safe havens. Another was Sevilla, which fell to the Castilian King Ferdinand III in 1247. The Castilian rulers were enamored by the culture they encountered in victory, and they took pride in continuing to nurture the idea of the three cultures. When Ferdinand III died, his epitaph was inscribed in 4 languages: Arabic, Hebrew, Latin, and Castellano, or Spanish. Soon Granada was the only Muslim kingdom remaining on the peninsula. Granada, including both the city and the region around it, survived for 260 years, although the Christians nibbled at its edges. In 1482, however, Isabel and Fernando launched the Granada War in the mythic quest of Reconquista. On January 1st, 1492, Granada's last king, Boabdil, handed the keys to the city over to the Christian monarchs. As he left the city, he stopped in the mountains to turn back for one last view. When Boabdil's eyes welled up, his mother berated him, "You weep like a baby for that which you could not defend like a man." 3 months later, on March 31st, Isabel and Fernando issued the Alhambra decree announcing that all Jews in their kingdoms must either convert to Catholicism or leave Spain. 9 years later, the same decree was issued regarding Muslims.